Good evening. Let me know if you can hear me well. I'm not sure if the mic is on. Should work. Hey, hi Bianca. This is a really special thing for me also because I normally don't go live alone, but we have some breaking news. I was expecting this first tomorrow, but let me just show you guys. I'll try and present. This is the first time I'm sharing screen. I only have one screen here. So let's see. Let's see if you can see this. Okay, how does it look? So I'm not going to be able to read the chat now while I'm doing this, but Berlingske is one of the biggest newspapers in Denmark. And this is actually not just hot off the press because the papers are still getting printed at this moment, but this article has been published tonight, and this is one of the articles that have been published tonight, actually, because this is a two-part huge article regarding the abuses in Scientology from Cyril Chicay's perspective. If you don't know Cyril, he's actually been on Aaron Smith-Levin's channel telling his story, and now he's telling the story to whole of Denmark. I'm going to try and see if I can move it over here. So Cyril is originally from Switzerland, but when he was a young boy, his mother moved herself and her children to Copenhagen, and she was working in the Sea Org. So I have made a kind of rough translation of the article, but I just wanted to show you here. This here is the front page of basically the biggest newspaper in the country. So this is absolutely amazing. I was aware of this, but otherwise I'm not involved in this this publication or this activity in any kind of way. But I will get into it later, what this is actually related to. So let me just open the article. And basically the headline just says that he was a child, but worked from 9 to 11 every day. Now he calls Scientology the modern slavery. And he's basically sharing his whole story. And I was, when I was doing the translation, I could see, I think it was like 6,000 words combined with the two articles. So this is a huge reportage. It's in the front page of the biggest newspaper in Denmark, so it's absolutely amazing. And yeah, he gets to share his story with everyone. It's kind of a heartbreaking story, so it's no entertainment, but I think to wake up people, this is what needs to be done. And I'm really, really proud of Cyril also. I don't really know him personally. I met him once and I've been in some contact with him, but he's really brave to come out with this, especially because his mother is still currently in Scientology in Denmark, in Sea Org. So let me just quickly skip through this this article, and after that I will just try and go through the whole article. I have it on my phone, so we can then talk about it later. But just wanted to share this with everyone because I think this is absolutely amazing. You can see this is not a small thing. This is huge, and this is going to be on the newspaper tomorrow, which I will for sure have to go and buy. The first newspaper in 10 years I probably bought. And there's, of course, the Scientology response. I will not get into too deep to the response from Church of Scientology today, because we're going to do a live with Balazs tomorrow, and we are going to go through the full response from the Church of Scientology, because I don't think I have enough insight to give full commentary on that. So we're going to do it together, and we're going to go it word to word together with Balázs. So you can see this is not just a little article. This is basically his whole story. So it's absolutely amazing. Let me just go back to the top. Thank you, Fluffer, for being here. I know it's really late, but I just really wanted to share it. I was looking forward to tomorrow for the article to come out, and then I got a message from Cyril that actually it was already published online. So I thought, I can't wait. I need to share it with you guys right away. This is something that the American journalist could also take a little bit of example of. This is how to do it. So let's get into the article. And if you have some questions, I can take them later. So I'm sorry, I need to be looking at the, Arbeiter means work and labor. I can take some questions later, but I will try and read it here from my phone because, like I said, I'm working on one screen, so it's really difficult to try and make this work. But I will just do my best. So maybe we take this in parts. This is really long. I think this is. I moved it to Word, and I think it's like in total like 10 pages. 10 pages of text. But yes, I'll just start. He was a child, but worked from 9 to 11 p.m. Now he calls Scientology modern slavery. He was just 16 years old when he signed a contract for the rest of his life. And then the work began. Here is the story of 90 hours a week with no days off, about what a defector described as a modern slavery in the middle of Copenhagen. Scientology rejects the criticism. What a surprise. In his black backpack, he had hidden a few personal belongings and a few pieces of clothing he owed. The guard mustn't be able to see him, that this time he went out of the door for the last time. He stepped out into the pavement in front of the Seorg building in the heart of Copenhagen and walked away from everything he had ever known. Scientology has been around for over 70 years. Children have been born to Scientologists and have grown up with the organization as the focal point of their existence. For some of the children born into Scientology, this has meant an upbringing where the youth has been spent working under slave-like conditions. This has taken place, among other things, in Denmark, which has housed Scientology's European headquarters since 1969 and still does so. But he has his story. I'm sorry, now I jumped over. Cyril Chiquet no longer has the rucksack he took with him that day, but he has his story. He tells it sitting in his apartment on the 8th floor of a new building in Valby, where he lives with his wife and 2 small children. The apartment is central. It is a breakthrough, a victory built in bricks, a real home for someone who hasn't had one for most of his life. I was 11 years old when I first signed a contract with Scientology. It was for a billion years. I remember kneeling in front of a chair and signing the paper while it was lying on the chair seat, says Cyril. He was born in 1988 in Switzerland to 2 parents who were both in Scientology. When he was 2 years old, his parents separated and he stayed with his mother and rarely had contact with his father. Ahead of his story, Denmark and Copenhagen await. There is a reason why he ends up exactly here. It is closely related to the American science fiction writer who founded Scientology, L. Ron Hubbard. Berlingske has submitted Scientology criticism from Cyril Chiquet. And here is a short caption in quotes from the press representative for Scientology. Cyril Chiquet was a member of the religious order of the Church of Scientology Europe almost 20 years ago. The fact that he has succeeded in getting his story covered in Berlingske makes no sense apart from supporting and giving space to anti-religious hypocrisy, writes head of information in the Church of Scientology Denmark, Annette Rafstrup. I want to add here that this is the same person that was coming to Bianca's face when we were protesting in front of AOSH EU. This is the same person that was intimidating us when we were doing our peaceful protest. But we'll just cover that tomorrow. It's just a small quote. Hubbard didn't look back. Scientology has been debated for years. In 1950, Hubbard published the book Dianetics, The Modern Science of Mental Health, a self-help book with easily accessible psychotherapeutic tools. The book spent 28 weeks in the New York Times bestseller list and sold far more than his previous novels and short stories. The book and its techniques resonated. Around the United States, groups were popping up who wanted to practice Dianetics. And Hubbard, he never looked back. Hubbard claimed that by using Dianetics, one could become clear, a happy, well-functioning person who has had all the traumas, phobias, and obsessions removed, and who can therefore remember everything and can utilize his full mental potential. An appealing thought that dangled like a carrot in front of many people who took the thought to heart. Dianetics was the starting point of the organization Scientology to emerge. However, Cyril Chiquet did not spend much time during his childhood years thinking about Dianetics and becoming clear, but his mother did. She, like his half siblings, was dedicated Scientologist. Directly or indirectly, she spent all her waking hours on Scientology. I have virtually no memories of having dinner with my mother, says Cyril. He and his younger brother, a year and a half younger, spent their time pretty much as it suited them. The positive side of it is that my upbringing has made me very independent, he says. At one point, it seems that the fine line between freedom under responsibility and failure and neglect was close to being crossed. A forced replacement case was launched in Switzerland when Cyril and his then 11-year-old younger brother had told at school that he was not getting enough food. However, the case was won by their mother, who retained the custody, and then she got the idea that led them to Denmark. In Cyril's eyes, his mother is not a bad person. Far from it. She's just convinced that she's doing the only right thing with her life by prioritizing Scientology over everything else, he says. Because Scientology fights for all people to become clear. If they become, the moral goes, the strife and the wars are over, and the world becomes a better place with happier people. In addition, Cyril Chiquet's mother, like many other Scientologists, also worked on something else that requires a little more understanding of Dianetics and Scientology. The concept of Scientology as a philosophical and religious practice came about a few years after L. Ron Hubbard had published Dianetics. The basic idea is that man is divided into three: mind, body, and Satan. A Satan is a kind of a soul or spirit, and the goal of a Scientologist is to break free from mind and body and become operating Satan, an OT. An OT is a kind of superhuman who is not limited by his body and therefore can do anything from walking through walls to time travel and controlling other people's thoughts. OT is divided into different levels. It is called a bridge that Scientologists can move up by taking different courses. I need to take a little drinking break. Hi, everyone. Whew. This is really informative text. This is really like building up the whole story for the reader also to understand what Scientology is and how Scientologists operate. This is not any kind of fluff piece. So I really appreciate the hard work they've been doing on this one. Okay, let's continue. Cyril Shikay's mother wanted to go all the way up the bridge, even though the courses were expensive, and she therefore had to work very large number of hours to afford them. It was the large amount of work that gave her problems with the authorities in relation to her two sons. But in Scientology's elite unit Sea Org, she saw an opportunity. While civilian Scientologists can work and live among other people, and then, among other things, buy into Scientology's courses, it is a completely different matter for those who are employed by the Sea Org. They live and work for Scientology as if they were aboard a ship. Here, both she and the sons would be able to get aboard and lodging while she worked for the organization. The sons would become part of the cadet scheme, so the cadet org, where they received Scientology-approved training with the aim of becoming part of the Sea Org themselves after finishing the training. The streets of Copenhagen tumbled grey and winter cold towards Cyril Shikay, his little brother and mother. Their clothes bore about of the coldness. Their clothing were made for temperature of different kind of climate, but they had to bite the bullet. Cyril Shikay was 15 years old when he arrived in Copenhagen with his mother and younger brother. For the previous 6 months, they had lived in Los Angeles, where their mother had worked for Scientology and the boys had spent their days skateboarding and looking after themselves. That life was finally over. At Vesterbrogade 22, the boys were made to wait in a kind of reception. Their mother disappeared into the back room as the hours passed. Only late in the evening, when they walked in their Californian summer clothes from Vesterbrogade to Korts Allesgade near Nyhavn, the new center of their lives. This is in the 90s, late 90s. He's telling about the birthing. We were about 10 children. The youngest were probably 11 years old. And then we were taught. It was mostly mathematics, English, and Hubbard's thoughts, says Cyril. Once in a while, the teacher tried to teach them some Danish, but it didn't go well. Boys and girls slept separately in rooms with bunk beds, and their personal belongings were limited to what could be in a narrow closet. We didn't see our mother much. She slept in a dormitory with women in the Sea Org on another floor of the building, says Cyril. Now, we're going to come to the really exciting part, actually, because there's a small text box in the middle of the article, and this is something that's going to happen next week. On August 19th, there's going to come out a book called The Hotels of the Darkness, The Children in Scientology, which is a testimony to the high price that children had to pay when the adults' ideology turns into fanaticism. The book was written by Defector Scientologist Robert Dam, who left Scientology in 2004. Berlingske has come into contact with Cyrils via Robert Dam. The information in the articles about the rise and development of Scientology originates, among other things, from the darkness, the Hotels of the Darkness. Robert Dam has already written a book before about his own story that was a bestseller in Denmark called The Defector. But this is a book totally dedicated to the stories of the children that were born in the Sea Org in the 80s and 90s, or were brought into Denmark in the 80s and 90s. Berlingske has been in contact with Cyril Chikay's younger brother, Terry, who confirms his story. Berlingske has also contacted Cyril's ex-wife, who does not want to participate. Cyril Chikay's mother has not returned to Berlingske's inquiries. She's still in Sea Org. So that's going to be amazing. I will be sharing everything, all the press and everything that's going to come out of the book. I'm hoping for as much publicity as possible. He's already had a bestseller book. He's done all the tours on the local morning or the Danish morning TVs and talk shows and so forth. And I expect no less in this case, because this is a matter of child abuse. And we know it's still happening. But the story continues here. At the age of 16, it was end of school. He did not get the 9th grade graduation exam. He only received a contract and a pen in return. He knew it because he had signed a similar one before. For the second time in his life, Cyril Chikay signed that he would work for the Sea Org in Scientology for a billion years. This time it was serious. But a very special feeling sprouted him. I remember sitting under the equestrian statue at Saint Anne Place, and all I could think about was that I didn't really feel like it. I didn't want to go to the Sea Org. I didn't want to work like that, he said. He kept his thoughts to himself. He had nowhere to go. And he didn't want to get ostracized. Cyril Chikay was assigned to the translation department, which was based on Storgången scale. And so the new life began. The working day began at 9 in the morning and ended at 11 p.m. every day of the week, also in the weekend. On Saturday mornings, however, after cleaning his room, he could sometimes obtain permission to take a few hours off, where he could buy toothpaste or soap if he needed it. Often the workday was extended with overtime, either because they didn't have enough time to meet various deadlines or as a punishment for making a mistake. It happened that he was required to work throughout the night. To begin with, he received 50 kroner per week. This is roughly like $7 US dollars. Since then, the payment increased to 100 Danish kroners per week. The money went, among other things, to items for personal care: soap, toothpaste, shampoo, and also underwear. But some weeks we didn't get any money, either because there was no money or because we were punished for something, says Cyril, and adds, it was modern slavery. In addition to board and lodging, Scientology also paid for the employees' uniforms. But we only got 2 shirts and 1 or 2 pairs of pants. You had to fight to get some new clothes, Cyril says. Accommodation included sleeping in a dormitory with up to 9 other boys or men. The rooms were in poor condition. There was really no private life. Exactly that part came to have an influence on Cyril Shikay's life going forward. But first to the food. Wednesdays were the best because then we had pasta with tomato sauce. It was made on Vesterbogade and then it was carried through the city in a kind of plastic boxes from IKEA that are normally used for storage. When the pasta arrived, it had hardened so much in the box that we had to cut it into squares, says Cyril. It was cheap food and limited time to eat. We had 45-minute break for lunch, but 45-minute break start when they stood on Storkongensgade, and the food was served at another location. There is about a kilometer between the 2 addresses, and although they were done in a gallop, it usually took 15 minutes both ways. After lunch, there was one of the day's many roll calls at Storkongensgade. After we were scolded violently for one thing or another, and friend with not being allowed to sleep, not getting paid, or being declared as a suppressive person. An evil person that other Scientologists freezes out. 16-year-old kids. But he says it came so common that we stopped reacting to it. He didn't know the Danish law. Cyril Shikay had 2 weeks holiday every year, but his other waking hours were spent with work. In Denmark, young people who have reached the age of 15 are welcome to work. But the Working Environment Authority states that working hours must not exceed 8 hours a day and 40 hours per week. In addition, young people are generally not allowed to work between 8 p.m. and 6 a.m. Young people also have a right to continuous rest period of at least 12 hours a day and to 2 consecutive days off within a 7-day period. As far as possible, the days off must be in context and must normally include a Sunday, writes the Working Environment Authority in an email to Berlingske about the general conditions for young people's work. Danish legislation was thus exceeded. But Cyril didn't know that. He was in Copenhagen, walked the streets, but only knew about the life in Sea York, where the working week usually ended in around 90 hours. The hours, days, months, and years passed. Cyril worked, and he wondered too. He didn't try to get clear himself or reach the OT levels. It didn't interest him, and he didn't have the time for that either. On a daily basis, however, he was with people who were clear over high OT levels, but he did not experience a single one who had become the heralded superhuman. He did not experience anyone who could remember everything they had ever experienced, nor someone who could move things with the power of thought. I need to drink. In Sea York, the work culture included lots of shouting and screaming, threats and blackmail. It was something like if you didn't live up to something or another thing, you wouldn't be allowed to go to bed at night, or you wouldn't get your pay, or you'd be punished with things like cleaning toilets. If we had these amazing tools where people were OT and had to have reached some really crazy levels, then it didn't make sense for them to behave like that. Cyrils also marveled that he kept receiving corrections in L. Ron Hubbard's text. He worked on the practical side of republishing a number of Hubbard's books. The message was that the previous releases had errors made by others, but now Hubbard's extract and perfect text were to be used. However, reports continued to arrive that there were errors in text which had to be corrected before publication. I kept receiving corrections to the same books. It didn't make sense because they said it was Hubbard's original text that we were working with. And if you follow Scientology's way of thinking, Hubbard doesn't make mistakes. It was a slow sliding push, the tectonic plates of a worldview that were in a slow motion beneath him. He wanted to leave, and the decisive moment was approaching. But before that, another defining moment in his Scientology life took place. Okay, let's take a little breather now. That was the first article that was published. And just to anyone who's joined, there's a huge article series. There's 2 articles that are regarding Cyril Chikay's story. He's a second-generation Scientologist who was in the Sea Org in Denmark, first in Cadet Org and then Sea Org. And this huge reportage is published in conjunction with the release of a new book called The Hotels of the Darkness, which is written by an ex-Scientologist called Robert Dam. So basically he has given out his story also in terms of supporting the book and the promotion of the book. I have met Robert. He's a really interesting guy. He spent his whole Scientology career, if we can call it that, as a public. He was shortly a member of staff, but other than that, he was public. And he's published a book about his own Scientology story. And he actually said that after he released the book, and there was also a documentary that he was involved in 2015, he was kind of done with his work until he got contacted by someone who had grown up in the Sea Org. And he got captivated by the story because even though he spent 20 years in Scientology, he was not aware of the abuse of the children in the Sea Org. And that's something we need to always keep separated or in our mind when we protest Scientology, that there are only a few, like certain people are privy to certain kind of information, and it can be that the public is not aware of all the abuse that's going on. And after being contacted by this person, he spent a few years in doing research, interviewing different people that have grown up in Scientology in Denmark, in the Sea Org. And the book is a result by that. And I'm really hoping it's going to get insane amount of publicity in Denmark, and that it will be translated into other languages as well. He also told something that I was not aware of, was that the officials in Denmark, the public authorities, were actually aware of what was going on in Sea Organization in the 80s and 90s, and they did nothing about it. So I think this is about the time to start to correct these mistakes. Just my own 2 cents. I could go through the chat a little bit here and see who's in. Maybe if I can go up. I don't know how to do it. Really not an expert with the StreamYard. Maybe I'll just open. No, let's read the article and let's look at the comments after that, because this was only the first part of it. So we're jumping into 2007 now. On September 28, 2007, he stood at Copenhagen City Hall at the wedding office, 19 years old, with his girlfriend by his side. When the couple left the town hall again, they were husband and wife. When the couple left the early marriage was, in Cyril Chikay's eyes, necessary because Scientology's elite group, Sea Org, sex was a very poignant matter. Or rather, sex was not allowed to fill anything, and thereby it was filling a lot of thoughts. There's a quote from him. It is forbidden to masturbate, and I knew it was forbidden. But I couldn't help it. Today, I see it as a kind of mental abuse. They made me believe I was evil, says Cyril, about the interrogation-like situation that were a regular part of his life after he became a Scientology Sea Org member in 2005 as a 16-year-old. Here, he was required to work days from 9 to 11 every day of the week for 100 kroner a week, food of poor quality, and accommodation in dormitories in poor buildings. Not because Cyril himself had chosen that life, but primarily because his mother and other immediate family were in the Sea Org. When some formed couples in the Sea Org, it could lead to more reports. Because maybe that couple had forbidden sex, prohibited things happen that had to be admitted on ongoing confessional interrogation called sex checks. With the I do at the Copenhagen City Hall, Cyril and his wife gave themselves an opportunity to be together and be allocated in a common room, even though they were both in the Sea Org. It is allowed to have a girlfriend, but you must not do anything but hold hands and kiss. If you do more, you're smoking in the ethics department. And the ethics department is pure mental torture. It's mostly about you being a bad person and you need to make amends. You can do this, among other things, by working even more than you already do. Then it may be that you will be accepted by Scientology again. But this is the reason why many in Sea Org get married very young, says Cyril. Berlingske has seen Cyril's marriage certificate. They have also contacted Cyril's ex-wife. She did not wish to participate in this article. Berlingske has submitted the Scientology criticism from Cyril Chikay. And here we have a quote again from the Church of Scientology from Annette Grafstrup. Cyril Chikay was a member of the religious order of the Church of Scientology Europe for almost 20 years ago. The fact that he has succeeded in getting his story covered in Berlingske makes no sense apart from supporting and giving space to anti-religious hypocrisy, writes Head of Information in the Church of Scientology Denmark, Annette Grafstrup. However, the marriage did not change the fact that something was simmering in Cyril. He never wanted the life in the Sea Org. But all close family members were Scientologists at the time. Other roads have not been presented. As a child and quite young, he had never questioned Scientology's worldview. But as a grown-up teenager, a quiet doubt began to creep in. It ceased to be silent in 2008 when a decisive event occurred in the life of Cyril. The books he had worked on day and often night with the original Hubbard text had been published. Since they were supposed to be the corrected Hubbard works, All Scientologists had to buy them, even if they had previous editions of the books. That was what brought the money into Scientology. David Miscavige, the leader of Scientology, wrote a letter in which he said that because of the translated books, our department had made more money in 3 months than in the previous 10 years combined. The message was not received by joy. The message was not received with joy by Cyril Shikay. When I started in the Sea Org, there was a part of me that started to believe that we were on a mission. We were supposed to save the world. I believed that more people would come to Scientology, that we would expand and become so rich that we wouldn't have to work so hard anymore. We would get better buildings, better uniforms, better food, better care, better everything, says Cyril. He himself lived on an absolute minimum. He worked like crazy, was shouted at, scolded, punished, ate poor quality food, and it was extremely difficult to get a new uniform shirt or a new pair of trousers. But nothing changed. We were told that we had earned very, very much, but we didn't get better food, no better care, no better buildings, says Cyril, and adds, that was the moment for me. From then on, I began to lose faith. But with all his immediate family and his wife in Scientology, Cyril would do a lot not to break completely with the organization. There were many considerations. The risk felt colossal. Would Cyril's wife turn on him? Would he turn every human he had ever been close to against him? Still, he finally decided to talk to his wife about his doubts and about no longer wanting to be part of the Sea Org. This decision was difficult, but the couple found out that they wanted to leave the Sea Org together and instead become public Scientologists. Cyril did not want to slam the door. He wanted to continue to have contact with his mother and other family members. That would be impossible if he broke with Scientology completely. But they would not let us do that, says Cyril. The application to be allowed to become a civilian or public Scientologist had a consequence. Cyril was deprived of his normal duties and assigned other less attractive duties. At the same time, the so-called ethics department conducted a long series of interrogation-like interviews with him. Cyril Shikay was put to wash dishes in the kitchen that prepared food for the people in Sea Org. For 9 months, he did what the ethics department told him what to do, in the hope of not losing his family. But other means were also used. At one point, my wife and I got a separation order. This meant that we were not allowed to have anything to do with each other. Berlingske has seen the separation order from 20th of May in 2009. Here is stated that they must not have any contact with each other until both have gone through their ethical handling and the separation order has been lifted. Barely 2 weeks after, he could not do more. On 1st of June 2009, 21-year-old and his rucksack on his back, Cyril Shikay escaped from the building on Court Adelersgade. His wife stayed. So did everything he had known so far. Out on the streets of Copenhagen, he knew no one. He knew nothing of the world but what Scientology had taught him. But he knew that he had a good relationship with a former Sea Org member, a public Scientologist whom he knew where he lived. He had cycled past her apartment several times and from Scientology's buildings in Glostrup. Reluctantly, she let him sleep in her apartments for 2 weeks. Cyrils Chikay's journey forward in life is full of bumps. A young man without any kind of education outside the world of Scientology, without network, without a job, and without money. The options were limited. He returned to Switzerland, where he lived for a time with his father. While struggling to find his way into new life, he also did everything in his power not to be declared a suppressive person by Scientology, an evil person with whom the organization and other Scientologists must not have anything to do with. This meant, among other things, that Cyril agreed to pay Bill for his time in the Sea Org. I had to pay a freeloader bill. If you leave Sea Org, you have to pay back all the courses you had to take while working there. The courses were necessary to fit the job. For Cyril Chikay, the bill was 6,957 kroners, equivalent for more than 5 years' salary at Sea Org. Berlingske has seen the bill. In addition, he had to buy a number of books by L. Ron Hubbard. Ironically, these were the books that Cyril Chikay himself had worked on translating while he was in the Sea Org. It was around 27,000 Danish kroner. I do not have the bill anymore, so I can't remember the exact amount. But I had no money, so it was an extremely large amount of money for me. Cyril borrowed money from his sister to pay the bill, and then he managed to get a cleaning job at an airport hotel. The road ahead looked bleak and difficult, but the two skills in particular stood him in good stead. He could work and then he could make a living, if not very good. I could pay my sister back and then I could put a little bit aside. Bit by bit, I built a life. He had succeeded in leaving the Sea Org without getting into bad standing in Scientology, but he wanted more. In the summer of 2011, Cyril Chikay returned to Copenhagen. In Copenhagen, there are many former Sea Org members who are still part of Scientology. I thought it would be easier to survive if I had someone to help me. At the same time, I wanted to take an education, and I knew that it was free in Denmark, he says and adds. I found out I wanted to study international IT support at a technical school. And then I just asked that they didn't ask for then I just wished that they wouldn't ask for diplomas because I didn't have any. Cyril Chikay took the training. He worked, saved. The ability to live on very little has continued. At some point, he changed tracks and became a photographer instead. I often think that Denmark saved my life. Here I got the opportunity to build a life from nothing. In 2014, he divorced his wife. He had averted the final break with Scientology and was therefore able to speak sporadically with his family members. That was until he posted a photo on Instagram in February 2021. Here he stands with his current wife. In the picture, she is pregnant, and they are standing together in the apartment on the 8th floor of the new building in Valby. It is central, a breakthrough, a victory building bricks, a real home for someone who hasn't had one for most of his life. For the photo, he wrote for the first time about his time in Scientology. When I was 21 years old, I left the Sea Org. I had nowhere to go. I had no money. I had no education. I hadn't even finished primary school. In fact, I owed money. I was required to pay the Sea Org back all the courses I had taken while I was there. It was a hard start, it said, among other things. That led to calls from several of Cyril Chiquet's family members. They wanted me to take down the picture and the text again, but I refused. It was a difficult decision. He had spent a lot of energy not breaking completely with the organization. Now he didn't want to do it anymore. The consequence of that decision has not gone unnoticed. Cyril Chiquet no longer has contact with his mother or the half-siblings who remain in Scientology. He believes they have been ordered to break with him because he is not allowed for them to have any contact with people who speak publicly about bad experiences in the organization. He still has contact with his younger brother. He left Scientology around the same time as Cyril and lived for a time as a homeless person on the streets of Copenhagen. What remains is that Cyril Chiquet has created a home and a family with his new wife, who has never been part of Scientology, and their 2 children together. His children, he emphasizes, must never experience the same as he has experienced. I understand now that I have been a modern slave. That's the whole article. I'm not sure if I can go back in the comments here. So if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to do it now, and then yeah, we'll go from there. Thank you for the room raid from Brain Fog. I enjoy seeing videos of ex-Sea Org members when they tell about their experience. But this article has so much information, and you can clearly get the idea of how much time there has been spent actually on investigating this, that it paints the whole picture in a totally different kind of way. And I hope this is just as understandable for anyone who just happens to open the newspaper as it is for us. But basically, Cyril has decided to give his own story to be shared on the newspaper to help the book get more publicity, and for the Danish people to find out more about the abuses of Scientology. And I think it's absolutely amazing. I admire his bravery, the kind of things that he shares there. I think it's absolutely horrible that Annette, the communication representative from Scientology, is making it sound like he is after publicity. The kind of personal things he's sharing in this article is not something that anyone wants to share just because they feel like it. So we're talking about 2 different people here now. Cyril is an ex-Sea Org member. He was born into Scientology. He has shared his story once before publicly on Growing Up in Scientology YouTube channel, on Aaron Smith-Levin's channel, and now actually on, basically the biggest newspaper in Denmark. he's supporting the publication of this new book. He has not written the book. The book is written by a man called Robert Dam, who is an ex-public Scientologist. He wrote a book about his story in Scientology because even though he was a public, he could not avoid getting into trouble either. But he was not aware of the full extent of the abuse within the Sea Org until almost 15 years after he left Scientology himself. Yeah. I have sent Cyril a message today when he sent me the link and just told him how proud I am and how I admire his bravery. I think it's really remarkable to be put yourself in the same situation, to be sharing these kind of personal things that Cyril, Bianca, Samuel, Balazs, everyone who's left Scientology is sharing. It's not easy, and we need to remember that. Yeah. Of course, it's great that the newspaper is willing to tell the story. Here, Scientology has got no kind of power, not over media, not over police, not over anyone. So I believe that we are, every one of us, both on YouTube, but also the public of Denmark, us as a protest, we are the ones that are holding the chains in our hands. The more you speak out, the faster it will happen. Nita is asking, do you think Cyril will ever join you and Balazs? He has a busy life with 2 small children. I think one of them is only like few months old. I'm not sure if he's going to join us. Hopefully at one point. But I mean, I would say this is much bigger than our little protest at AO at the moment. This is getting national attention. This is the front page of the newspaper when you go online. And tomorrow it's going to be on print, and I will share it on my community page. I will also share the link to the news article. I saw Yolanda was asking for it. I will put it in the description, but it's behind a paywall, so you cannot get the article for free. I thought I was being a little bit sneaky and having not the translated version here displayed. I could just read it. Local media covering our protest. Not at the moment, but that's because we haven't been in touch with the press. I think it's probably around the time to start to do that. We had another project that we were hoping to make happen, but I haven't heard anything, so I think it's time to start to inform from the media. And our local media is the national media over here because we are protesting in the capital of Denmark, so we have all the big newspapers and media outlets over here. So absolutely. And anyone who is interested in participating in our protest are welcome. Just send me an email on scientologyupnorth@gmail.com or send a mail to elronhubcult@gmail.com. And I totally agree that the US news outlets need to also take note on how to stand up against Scientology. There's nothing to be afraid of. There's no risks. And you can see that the Scientology is not able to give any kind of response that would make any kind of sense. We're going to do a live tomorrow with Balazs because on top of these 2 really long articles, I mean, it took almost an hour for me to go through them. There's also a 3rd article, which is a written response from the Church of Scientology. And when I read through it, I thought, okay, this is something I will need to look together with Balazs, because there's a lot of false information over there and total nonsense. But that's what we are used to. They are really not fighting their case at the moment at all. Do I think the Berlingske would be willing to highlight the protest? Perhaps. Perhaps. Yeah. I mean, we can try. So for sure, we can contact the news outlets before we're gonna go on protest next time. I'm sorry that I can't go actually up here and read the older comments. So if you have any questions, then you just need to write now. I saw that Eric was here, and Danny and Lady Jane and Fuzzy Pink Handcuffs, and who else? There was a lot of people there, but I just tried to focus on reading the article. I'm not the best public speaker. This is all new to me, but I just felt that it was important to share that there's actually some waves in Denmark. So, and Cyril and Robert are really making big waves now. So this is absolutely amazing news. The newspaper is for sure not aware of the worldwide protest, but I think it's time to maybe get in touch with them and see if they want to cover. I've been waiting for the book to be published. I would be and getting a media attention, because I'm hoping that attention of the book will also trickle down on us, and people will start to have their eyes on Scientology even more. Thank you, Nina, for saying we're doing an amazing job. We try to do what we can, but of course, it's the media attention is probably the best thing to build the awareness in Denmark. Yeah. And I really hope that I will get to talk to Robert on my channel at one point. I know that the book is coming out next week, so he's probably very busy doing interviews, and I'm hoping that he's got some TV shows lined up and everything. But maybe at the later point, when it all comes down, maybe he would be willing to come on my channel and we could have a talk, because he also has an interesting story himself. But I would very much like to hear and also share with you more about the story of how he became interested on this topic when he had already kind of decided that his work in the ex-Scientologist world was kind of done. But then he got contacted by this person who had a horrible experience in the Sea Org, and that person is also not Cyril. So there are several children in Denmark, or children. They were children. Now there are people around my age that have experienced the same kind of abuse. What was the book called again? Do you happen to know if it will be on Storytel? I mean, I'm thinking there's going to be an audiobook at one point. The book is called Mørkets Hoteller. So the hotels of the darkness. And yeah, it will be published. It says on the article the 19th. I thought it was the 20th, so I need to go and look at the bookstore already on the 19th if it's maybe out. But at the moment, it's only in Danish. But if the book sells well, then of course there's option for translating it also into English, just like his previous book. The previous book can be found in Amazon. It's called The Defector, and he's called Robert Dam, D-A-M. Annette is saying, yes, TV2, good morning, Denmark, or good evening, Denmark. Yeah, so there's some morning and evening shows. I really hope they're going to have him as a guest. He has been there before. But unfortunately, the public only remember like what they read a couple of minutes ago. If it's yesterday's news, then it kind of gets out from the other ear or something. So we just need to keep banging on this topic until everyone's aware of it, and not give them permission to forget it. Yeah, Laurie, I know that a lot of people could not care less about what the cult is saying about this, but because we have I don't know if you could call it a personal relationship with this lady, because she's not only the communications representative for Church of Scientology, she's also in OSA. So we have been dealing with her a lot, and she's been taking pictures of us, and she was behaving horribly towards our lovely guests, Samuel and Bianca, when we were protesting. I find it kind of interesting, the response that she has given. So we really want to dissect that. Mm. But if there's no more questions, then I think this is it for this time. And then tomorrow we will dissect the response from Church of Scientology with Mr. L. Ron Hupcult, because it was a very, very interesting response. She did not agree to have a dialogue with them, so it's only a written response to the claims of Cyril. So that already tells what you can expect from that. But I think it's necessary to go through it and show every single inaccuracy by a person that has actually been in the Sea York. So that's gonna be tomorrow. And thanks everyone for joining. I'm sorry that I didn't get to say hi to everyone, but I hope this was good news. And I hope that I will see this also in other countries as well. The media needs to grow a pair, in my opinion, in the States. I think UK is already covering quite well, but yeah, we need more of this. Yeah, I hope this will spark a discussion all over in Denmark now. Yeah, I hope that this is something that's going to be talked in every single lunch table in Denmark when people go to work. And I hope we're going to get more protesters also. I hope that there are going to be people that will wake up and think, okay, this is not okay. This cannot be happening in anymore. More. And also that this is not just history, this is still happening. Cyril was 16 years when he started in Sea York. I know Balazs said that there was at least a couple of 16-year-olds also starting in Sea York when he was there. So it's not something that is ancient history. It's still happening today. And we know the abuse is happening today. So we just need to keep our eyes on the prize and get the Scientology kicked the hell out of Denmark. That's all I'll need to say about that. But thanks for joining me. We're going to see you again tomorrow. Have a good day, evening, night, wherever you are. And yeah, thanks for being here. Bye.